When Black Jewel Mining declared bankruptcy in July, mines were closed across the country and hundreds of miners lost their jobs. But when workers in Harlan County heard the coal they mined was loaded onto a train, they took a stand, a 2-month protest that gained global attention. Now the harsh reality. In December 2018, the unemployment rate in Harlan County was just above 6%. In June, the month before the shutdown, 8.8%. In the last numbers released by the Kentucky Center for Statistics, the rate has risen to 13%, the highest in the state. This shutdown affected the entire community.
It's the reason we're here. It's the origin of our existence.
My dad and my brother both were miners.
My dad too. That's what we do here.
In the hills of eastern Kentucky, Harlan County was established 200 years ago.
This is truly one of the most beautiful places in America.
But it was the resource deep in those beautiful mountains that put this place on the map in the early 1900s, King Coal. Towns were built overnight. Homes, schools, hospitals were constructed, and thousands of men went to work underground.
Mining is our bloodline here, and it's how our families make a living. It's how they pay their bills. It's how they raise their kids.
As coal companies boomed and busted over the past half-century, some miners have left Harlan County, but many families have stayed. Will Stanton says that he has been through more mine shutdowns than he can count.
7 or 8, yeah. It's on average about once every 2 years anymore. I mean, that's just part of it.
No pay! No pay!
This summer, Stanton and hundreds of other miners were laid off when the Black Jewel mine in Cumberland shut down. They had money taken from their bank accounts, money they had earned.
You know, when this first happened, we just basically lived day to day trying to figure out what's going on.
Once word spread that Black Jewel wanted to move coal that they had mined, protest began on the tracks outside of Cumberland. One that began with a few miners, including Jeffrey Willig, and it quickly grew into a summer-long campout along train tracks.
I think we took a stand. It's definitely put a spotlight on bad coal operators.
A stand that united an already tight-knit community.
I mean, we come together, we're like a sisterhood now. They've always had their brotherhood, but now we have our sisterhood.
With the support of his wife, Will Stanton is now looking for his next underground job.
I mean, it's what we all know around here. It's what we all love. I know a lot of guys down here went to truck and going back to school and all that, but most of us, we want to go back to mining. It's what we love.
For Paula Smith,
it's scary. It is. You just don't know.
The future seems more uncertain. Her husband is a veteran of the industry and, like Stanton, wants to return.
It's scary, but you have to take chances in life. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You just hope and pray for the best outcome with it.
King Coal was the reason thousands of families moved to the Tri-City area of Cumberland, Benham, and Lynch 100 years ago. The history is being restored. In Lynch, Portal 31 reopened as an underground mine museum, and the local government has worked with ministries.
We're going to see a lot more efforts like this
to restore old buildings, including Lamp House Cafe, that revolve around the mine.
This was the coffee shop in the 1950s. It served as the restaurant for the coal miners.
Just up the road in Benham, an old company store was transformed into Kentucky Coal Museum, dedicated to the heritage and history of an industry that brought hard workers around the world to Harlan County. Workers like Jeffrey Willig, who moved to the mountains from Baltimore 1 decade ago to dig coal.
Believe it or not, coal mining is, it's a good job, and when you're deep in a mountain like that, it's actually peaceful.
However, he now considers his mining career finished. He's going back to school and wants to learn fiber optics.
I'm just tired of, worrying if I'm going to have a job, depending on a president or depending on, if this operator is a good operator. It's sad because I know it has a very deep history here. I admire the history in coal mining. I admire it a lot.
It's a history that goes beyond the mines and beyond the museums, but in the people who built and stayed in this community, one of resilience and strength. Litigation involving Black Jewel is still ongoing in bankruptcy court. The miners still have not been paid. In 2017, more than 70,000 Americans died of a drug overdose. 2/3 of those deaths were opioid involved. The Centers for Disease Control listed the states with the highest death rate due to drug overdose. West Virginia and Ohio rank 1 and 2, and those are 2 of Kentucky's border states. Kentucky has the 5th highest rate at 37 overdoses per 100,000 deaths. And the CDC says that's a statistical significant increase from 2016, and that's a trend that has continued this decade. This is a problem not just in our Commonwealth, but the entire country. And while Washington is taking action, Connor McHugh is here to show us how one Lexington man is trying to make change at the community level.
Alex Elswick's journey could be best described as cautionary tale turned inspirational story. And it's important to note, most people don't come back from the depths of addiction like he did, but that right there is the foundation of what he's trying to do now.
And that was kind of the very beginning, I guess.
Chances are you grew up with someone like Alex Elswick, a star on the Henry Clay baseball diamond, an even more promising student. At 18, he moved just 30 minutes away from home to Center College in Danville.
I don't think many people I grew up with would have said that's a kid who's going to get addicted.
But Alex did. The first red flag was an arrest for marijuana. Then 2 months later, a doctor prescribed him oxycodone for wisdom teeth surgery. When that pill bottle ran out, he found another and another.
And I was making good grades as I was getting more and more addicted, so I kind of believed the lie that meant that I didn't have a problem, you know, when it quickly became apparent that I really had a problem.
Alex jokes he was the last person in Kentucky to know. After 2 years of relapses, an introduction to heroin and homelessness, he figured it out.
For me, rock bottom looked like sleeping under a bridge. I mean, I was literally sleeping under the Highway 35 overpass in downtown Dayton and shooting heroin and holding a cardboard sign. And a lot of times I tell people, even though I don't look like the stereotype today, when I was in the depths of addiction, I very much looked like a living, breathing stereotype of heroin addiction.
Eventually, Alex found his way out of the cycle. He credits the many programs that helped him, but most importantly, his privilege.
It's not like it was toughness or grit that got me sober. It's not like I'm in recovery because I'm strong. Those narratives just aren't real. I'm in recovery because I got access to all the help that I needed. And a lot of my friends don't have access to those things, and that's where Voices of Hope comes in.
Voices of Hope is how Alex is returning the favor these days. It's his nonprofit focused on support in recovery. On any night in the office off Old Vine, you'll find free programming such as AA meetings, sober social events, and Alex's favorite,
What happened there?
telephone recovery support, a method of calling people in treatment and checking up on them.
All we're doing is keeping them engaged and trying to build a rapport with them and connect. And sometimes people tell us that the phone call they get from us is the most meaningful human connection they have all week.
Alex is also involved in the University of Kentucky's Collegiate Recovery Community. It's a sober living program for students with the goal of one day having an independent dorm. On top of that, he's often out in the community raising awareness and offering hope to people in recovery.
We're not hiding out from the community. We stand up and shout out and say, I'm in recovery and I'm proud of that. And I think that goes a long way towards changing the narrative around addiction and recovery.
It's a long way to changing that narrative, but Alex plans on doing his part. As someone in recovery himself, he knows how hard the journey is and where people and programs can help.
Medical marijuana triggers emotional arguments from both sides. There are people that are very much against it. They say it's an illegal drug that should not be allowed here in the Commonwealth. But others say it's a type of medicine that works for them. And they want to be able to treat their pain and their symptoms using it without the fear of going to jail. But because it is still a crime, many people were afraid to go on camera to talk to us about it. But 2 men did, and they say they're willing to fight for medical marijuana. Bottle after bottle of pills, strong pills.
Some pain medication, some muscle relaxants, some vitamins, some blood pressure medicine, sleep aids.
This is what Jaime Montalvo's day revolves around.
I got on a pill diet, basically. I would wake up in the morning, take a fistful of pills. For lunch, I would have a smaller fistful, and then for dinner, I'd have a large fistful again.
This now empty bag is worth thousands of dollars.
They're very strong opioids in here.
And this is just some of what it takes to treat Montalvo's multiple sclerosis.
If you have a chronic illness and you're a disabled patient, you are prescribed minimum 3 to 5 prescriptions.
These pills are not Montalvo's. They're Chris Briesman's.
This is my pain medicine. This is methadone. It's a 5 milligram pill.
These pills help Briesman make it through the day, but they have side effects.
Pills in the morning, pills in the evening, and hope for the best.
His pain makes it impossible to work, so he spends his day taking things slowly. A few bites of food, some video games, and a small walk with his best friend Louie.
Nice, isn't it, Louie? Go on, go play.
But this is not how Briesman imagined his life.
This is from Whiteman Air Force Base. This is them telling me goodbye.
He once had a thriving military career.
I worked at Whiteman Air Force Base around the B-2s.
A career that was cut short.
The bullet went in here. It exited out my rear.
A gunman in Colorado almost killed him.
They think I died once.
Years later, he's left with these pills. Just like Montalvo is left with his. Both of these men have one more thing in common.
Cannabis was effective for me.
I just couldn't take it anymore and tried it, and the outcome was way more than anybody expected, and I've continued since.
Briesman says thanks to medical marijuana, he went from 29 prescriptions a day down to 3.
It all wipes away when I take a puff of cannabis.
Montalvo says medical marijuana also helped him out. So much so that he started growing his own under this porch behind closed doors.
Suppressed my nausea, my vomiting. I was able to sleep a little bit better at night. My pain went down.
But it all came crashing down when the bank down the street was robbed.
A guy robbed a bank at the end of my street, runs in front of my home, and behind him come cops with dogs. They smell my home, where I was growing right there.
Montalvo was arrested and ended up losing custody of his son.
I lost custody for 6 months, and it wasn't for cultivation, it wasn't for possession, it wasn't for trafficking. It was simply testing positive for cannabis.
Montalvo now fights in Frankfurt. He started Kentuckians for Medicinal Marijuana and lobbies to make cannabis legal. Briesman is a part of it too, fighting for what he calls his medicine.
I just want to pay my taxes on this stuff. I don't want to give my money to a drug dealer.
We have the highest level of unfunded pension liability in America, but Kentucky is better than that.
Those are the words Governor Matt Bevin spoke to the crowd at his inauguration in 2015. Ever since Governor Bevin has made it clear that he wants changes to the state's pension systems, we've seen arguments between lawmakers and stakeholders, but especially involving teachers. Our Carolina Buchek is here in studio to show us how that fight has really revved up in the last 18 months.
Well, it can be hard to keep track of what's happening when it comes to the battle over pensions. Lawmakers say they're trying to fix a system that's doomed for failure, but teachers say they want what was promised. And in the last year and a half or so, it has all come to a head.
Find funding first! Find funding first!
Teachers went into 2018 knowing their pensions would be up for change, and they were ready to fight back.
You vote now, we vote later.
But the battle that unraveled, they did not expect.
Find funding first!
It sounds like a simple request. Find the money to fund the state's pension system instead of making cuts. That's what teachers wanted.
They're having to do more and more with less and less, and the governor just said he's going to cut again. Well, you can only cut so far.
Lawmakers responded to those requests with 2018's Senate Bill 1, which lawmakers said would save almost $5 billion and ensure that teachers still have some type of pension system.
We've been through this process for some 6 months now, meeting countless hours, countless days, countless weeks, driving countless miles to get to where we are. And this is a good product. I, for one, don't think anybody can really find any fault with what we've done.
But the plan would require cutting billions in benefits for teachers, so they quickly fought back. In groups of thousands, teachers went to the Capitol to remind lawmakers they made a deal with the state. It's called the inviolable contract, meaning lawmakers legally can't take their promises back.
A promise is a promise. It has to be kept. Our children know that. Our children know what a promise is. They know that when you give your word, you don't go back on it. But apparently our state government doesn't.
The large protest worked. Senate Bill 1 was defeated with only a few days left in the legislative session. At first, it looked like the teachers had won. But a quick change was made.
Save our schools!
Senate Bill 151, originally a sewer bill, all of a sudden had pension reform added on, and it was moving through the process quickly. It became clear lawmakers were going to vote on it that night, so teachers rushed to the Capitol.
I worry that this is the demise of public education here in this state.
The very next day, 20 school districts shut down for the day as thousands of teachers called in sick. Instead of school, they came to Frankfurt, ready to show lawmakers that they were not happy. The battle over pensions no longer was just about what's in the bill. It was about how lawmakers passed it.
Putting it in a sewer bill just shows that these guys climbed out of the gutter, and we're going to send them right back to the gutter.
But instead of the gutter,
I will sue over this bill.
it went to court. Attorney General Andy Beshear and Governor Matt Bevin's lawyers argued all the way to the Supreme Court of Kentucky.
God save the Commonwealth, God save this honorable court.
In court, the Attorney General argued lawmakers broke the rules because they did not read the bill 3 separate times, a requirement by the state's constitution.
The paper was still hot, and they said we're going to vote on it right now.
The governor's lawyers argued the content in 151 was the same as the original pension bill.
Legislators knew what they were voting on. They had ample opportunity going back from before the legislature began, knowing what was in Senate Bill 1, which became Senate Bill 151.
But the Attorney General argued that proves lawmakers were trying to pass a bill while hiding from the public.
And the public killed Senate Bill 1. It was over. But this General Assembly and this governor tried to sneak something through.
The argument worked. With only a few days left in 2018, the Supreme Court of Kentucky decided the bill was passed illegally, meaning 151 was dead. It was a decision that made the governor mad.
This is a poke in the eye, a kick in the teeth, and a stab in the back to our legislature.
Teachers knew this was still not over. They figured this fight would continue in a few weeks when the 2019 legislative session was set to begin. But Governor Bevin gave it one more try. In the final days of 2018, he called a special session.
We have a legal and moral obligation to provide and deliver on the promises that have been made.
The attempt failed. The special session ended with no solution.
Without objection, so ordered, the House is adjourned.
A few days later, the new year and new legislative session started off loud for teachers. When pensions were on the agenda once again, a sick-out was called. Several districts, including the state's 2 biggest, Louisville and Lexington, shut down for the day, and teachers rallied in Frankfurt.
Vote no on 525.
Angry that this was happening again.
Are you kidding? Again? Like, I thought we made this clear last time. But a lot of people didn't show up to vote in November, so here we are again.
For some school districts, school was off for several days. Some teachers stayed until the very end of the session, fearing last-minute changes once again.
They took that trust from us last year, so we're watching closely, and we've made phone calls and done our emails and hoping that they'll listen.
The session ended and no major changes were made when it comes to pensions for public school teachers.
Our board, our pensions.
But this battle did not end.
What we don't have a right to do is to call in sick when we're not sick.
And that brings us to the last several weeks where subpoenas were issued demanding the names of all the teachers who called out sick and went to Frankfurt instead. Well, yesterday, a federal judge refused to block the subpoenas issued by Governor Bevin's administration. And the judge said that that temporary restraining order that the Attorney General was asking for is denied. So Beshear calls that ruling disappointing, but he says this case is far from over. Conroy, back to you.